We are live. So guys, welcome to today's webinar. If you're catching us live, that's great. Drop some comments. We're over on YouTube, LinkedIn. I think we got Facebook hooked up. We got all this going live. For if you're joining us, thank you for taking time out of your day. What I can tell you is Dan and I promise to make this an effective use of your time. You probably saw the title and you're wondering, okay, LinkedIn, is this like something I should be a part of? Does it have any legs underneath it? TikTok's having its issues over here on the side. Where do you need to be playing? Look, as somebody that's been on LinkedIn for almost 20 years, I will tell you two really important things to set the stage. One, I've been on a long time and it continues to evolve and change. I think it's better than it's ever been. And two, I love connecting with guys like Dan because what he's doing today is an innovator and someone that has got a fresh approach. And how do you take LinkedIn and actually create customers and relationships and revenue, right? I mean, that's what we're really there for, is how do we generate revenue through customers that we want to work with. I'm gonna tell you right now, you wanna take notes, you wanna ask questions, and you wanna really dig into this, because if you're not playing in the space, what I can assure you is you're leaving money on the table and you're leaving your customers open to somebody coming and potentially taking them away from you because you're not showing up. And so with all that said, we got the great topic today. How do you book 2 to 3 sales meetings? We're gonna jump into some of that. What are the things you need to have your profile optimized for? How do you actually engage in the platform so you're not one of those let's just say scammy people in the DMs, always hitting people up for stuff? There are some things Dan is doing. I've been observing him. And what I can tell you is I continually learn by what he's sharing. And so we're going to unpack that today. Dan, my friend, welcome to the webinar and the show. I can't wait to jam with you.
Good to be here, man. Appreciate you. Good intro too. Appreciate that.
Well, I wanted to set the stage because look, I mean, we haven't known each other that long, but what I love is when I can find people like you and I go, okay, one, you know your stuff. You're passionate about what you're sharing. And the third is it's actually tactical, where I can leave one of your posts or one of your shares and go, you know what? I could go do that. And I think for all of us, that's where we're at. So I'd love just your overall kind of impression right now with what's happening on LinkedIn, just kind of 30,000 foot view. So people are tuning in, like maybe even why they should care about LinkedIn today.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in my opinion, which, I'm on LinkedIn all day, every day. I'm seeing the sort of the movement that the platform has had, trying to just stay as in the know as possible with the platform. And the first thing I would say is that if you haven't taken advantage of the platform yet, it's all good. This is 2025 is an absolute like perfect time to jump in. But what I would say is LinkedIn, in my opinion, right now is the most has the most opportunity to help you bring in new revenue, establish new relationships with referral partners, etc. Than any other platform. And there's a couple of reasons why, but the main reason is that there's not as much competition on this platform as some of the others like Instagram and Facebook, who've been around longer. And but with that, it's like you have this platform that is less than 1% of users are actually creating content. All right. So there's a huge opportunity, right? For you just don't have, it's not as competitive to have your content seen. Yeah. But the platform is just like queued up for sales talk, like business conversations. Like,
yes,
it's not Facebook where like if you bring business up, that it's kind of like, where'd that come from kind of thing. This is what people are having conversations with. And so it's just well positioned right now.
Dude, I love you setting the stage for that, because that's what I've found in my own experience. Just to add on to that is, I've really been looking at, okay, what's working on IG, what's working on Facebook for us, what's working over on YouTube, and what's working on LinkedIn. And they are very different. Like what's performing for us, we've tried the strategy of let's post all the same stuff on all the platforms. And I got really quick feedback. And you're so right, man. On Facebook, people want to see my family, what my kids are doing in the sports and all that stuff, like what I'm doing, maybe working out or restaurant, travel. And if I started posting that business stuff, whereas if I go on LinkedIn, man, people are like, hey, I want more leadership stuff. Hey, yeah, what's happening in the housing market? You can give me some sales topics, help me improve my communication. So I'd love to start with this, because I think people overlook this step and they just want to jump in and get on the platform. But I'd be remiss if I didn't jump into profiles, right? And,
Yeah.
I look at profiles myself. Like we had people today that looking to join Revolution and all that, and I immediately go to their LinkedIn profile. I would love your take on this. Is what makes a great profile, and how can someone today look at theirs, maybe do a quick audit and improve their profile today?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great question. So, um, the profile, in my opinion, is like the foundational piece to make this engine work. Right. So, um, what we have seen over the years with LinkedIn is that people utilize LinkedIn to get a job. And that's sort of the old way of thinking that I think we need to like put to the side for a few minutes,
Sure.
or maybe for the whole call.
Yeah.
But so what we have done is we've created profiles that speak to somebody trying to hire us, right? It's an online resume. And when you think about the pieces that are on a profile page for LinkedIn, when you really start looking at it, and you compare it to the other profile pages of other platforms, LinkedIn is like the most um, well set up to get you business.
Mhm.
And so what I try to do is I try to help people see their profile page is no longer like their online resume, but like let's turn that into a sales page. So it's like a landing page
Mhm.
for your ideal customer. And so it kind of starts with these two things. It's like identifying who your audience is, knowing who that ideal customer profile is. Some people call it avatar. Some people call it, whatever other uh, term you want to use. But it's that ideal audience that you want to capture, that you want to do business with. That might be realtors. That might be, uh, you know, first time home buyers. That might be veterans. Whatever it is,
Sure.
understanding who those people are, and then understanding the pain points that they have and the problems that you're trying to help solve,
Mm.
and then positioning that throughout your profile. So if you just, as you're listening to this, you can go to your profile, you can go to my profile, see how I did it. But what the journey is that when somebody lands on your profile, and they will land on your profile to check you out, like you just said, um, you have about 3 seconds
Mm.
to hook them to stay. All right, so it's not a lot of time. So if you think about the way the profile page works, you have on the very top, the biggest amount of real estate is your banner image.
Yeah.
Um, and so and it really is, as far as like, that is your first opportunity to get somebody to keep going. And so a lot of times what I see is either no picture at all, or I've seen people with like a field of grass, or something like some
Yeah.
kind of scenery.
Random nature pictures.
Right. And so, or maybe just even a big banner of their company. And so what I try to help people do is say, make this as easy as possible. Like, who do you help? How do you help them? And why should they pick you? Right. So like the credibility piece at the end.
Mhm.
All right. So for me, it's like helping, I help the mortgage industry win business with LinkedIn. And then I put some, I show the companies that I've worked with, which are all well-known mortgage companies, as proof. And then I put a stat like 17,000 plus loan officers and mortgage pros on my newsletter. Those are credibility statements, right?
Mhm.
So whatever that looks like for the person who is trying to upgrade their profile, it's like, we're not talking about ourselves in the third person. We're not like trying to land a job. We're trying to have a conversation with someone who has a need that you
Yes.
can solve. And so we just keep kind of that idea going throughout as you go down the profile. Your headline matters, which follows you around all over LinkedIn. Um, there's something called feature images, featured section where you can
Mhm.
put call to actions with like lead magnets. And so there's all of these resources and tools that LinkedIn is given us. And if we just like turn our mind and stop thinking social media and start thinking like strategic sales, it can really benefit your business.
What a great way. You outlined that perfectly. And I'll tell you this, like I hear people try to explain this all the time, and I hear different versions of it. Like that was super simple. And I would encourage everybody when you get off the call to go and look at Dan's profile, right? Look at mine. Mine's very much as you're going through that. I'm like, okay, I've got that. Okay, I can improve that a little bit. Oh, I need to look at that again. Let's see what that looks like there. Like my featured section. Is it updated? Does it have all those things? Like my banner, we're actually updating it right now. And I'm going, you can always be updating this. But what I loved, I don't want people to miss this. There's a lot of mortgage professionals out there. There's a lot of real estate agents. When you were talking about this, that validation, that credibility, that piece there is, if you're a loan officer and you've closed, I don't know, 500 transactions, you've helped 500 people buy their home. Like, I would want to know that, and that separates you. Is it 500? Is it 5,000? Like, whatever your number is, you got to start putting those things in there. And I love that you said, I don't want people just to look over that and think about, well, people won't care. No, they do care. And it's your chance to sell yourself and to stand out from a crowd, that if somebody's looking at your page and they happen to look up the other loan officer that their realtor referred, I want you to think about which profile is going to stand out. Let's say he's helped over 5,000 people buy their first home, second home, investment property. You go to my profile, I have no factual kind of statements or anything of credibility. I'm telling you, you're going to lean towards Dan and go, man, this guy might be a little more credible. So I don't know if you want to add something, but you got me thinking, okay, those are some areas I can look at and go make changes today.
It's one of the most powerful things you can do. And here's what happens. A lot of times, not even like, so yes, salespeople, boots on the ground, but even like leaders, executives, we have this thing in our mind a lot of times where we think that we're bragging, or we're going to come across as like, I'm a little too much, or it's the exact opposite. Like you can position it in a way that sounds annoying, of course, but you can also, people want to know that you have the experience, and they want to know that people are using you, right? So like if I said my newsletter has 17 people signed up on it, you might not want to sign up on it. If I say I have 17,000 people, then that's more, okay, other people are doing it. I probably should be a part of this. Maybe I'm missing out on something. If I say I've worked with 0 mortgage companies, but I want to work with your mortgage company, it's going to look different. So I use this analogy. It's not a perfect analogy. I was not in the military, so this is not coming from like experience or anything, but to try to like help bridge the gap between bragging and just like credibility that stands out, and you like absolutely want to do it. If you think about leadership within the military, they have the patch on their arms, right? And or they have the medals of where they've been and the wars and battles they fought in. And somebody in the military goes into the same room and they can immediately recognize that person has been here or there, has this experience or has this authority, and salute them. But it's not a bragging thing for that officer or whoever to have that uniform on. And so if we can kind of take our mindset and say, how can I do this in like a way that helps lend credibility instead of like positions me as like this like guy who's just egotistical? I will tell you, I have tested this so many times. The actual numbers, when you're able to put those in, even your content and like very strategic spots in your profile, they do significantly better than if you are not doing those numbers. So do it. That's the tip. Do it.
Well, and I was at my buddy Neil, his Forward event last year, and Alex Ramosi speaking there, right? And one of the biggest things that just stood out that he shared was proof over promise. And there's so many people, they promise. And he said, if you want to cut through the noise, you give the proof, the testimonials, the factual data, the things that they're irrefutable. They are what they are. Yeah. And I remember thinking, okay, I started to add that into my content. I need to get better at that. But the ones, Dan, just what you said, they performed better because people could go look it up and go, well, that's true. And that's impressive. Like that lends me to probably want to engage. So, dude, I love this. So we tackled the profile. People take a look at your picture, take a look at your banner, take a look at your headline, take a look at your bio, all the featured sections, all that stuff there. Look at Dan's. We could probably spend more time on it, but we're going to keep moving because I know some of you want to figure out today, and I think this is a big thing that I'm hearing. We know the mortgage market, I'll just jump into that, is it could be up anywhere from 10 to 30%, depending on what market you're in. Everybody's looking at interest rates, this $1.8 trillion to $2.2 trillion market. How do you get your piece of that? Well, we all know it's back to fundamentals, getting more meetings, more conversations with more people. So using LinkedIn, and you were talking about this, is how people can actually get 2 to 3 appointments. How do people leverage LinkedIn, would be my question, to use this platform, whether familiar or not, to now start to move into it being an outbound, more of a sales prospecting tool?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. I think that is the a really challenging piece for anyone who has not done it before. And so this conversation is a good one because, you know, you'll have at least a starting point to be able to kind of see how this thing works. So, um, all right. So like we just said, you know, a lot of this boils down to a mindset shift in how the platform works and like what we think of when we think of social media. So I want you to stop, like, you know, anybody watching this, stop thinking of social media as social media and start thinking of it as social selling. And so there's a couple of legs to that. There's a couple of pieces, right? One of it's, you know, creating content that attracts and positions you as in a way of credibility and trust. Cool. Let's talk about the sales piece, because when you talk about content, that's really more bringing people to you over like a
Mhm.
longer period of time. But what are some of those things you can do that are more strategic outbound type strategies, and where you're going after it? Um, and so there are a number of ways to kind of figure out, you know, how and who to go after. There's, you know, if you have Sales Navigator, which a lot of people don't, but you can filter, you know, titles of referral partners that you might want to go after,
Mhm.
um, location, you know, that you want to go after. You can then take that list and see who's active on LinkedIn and who's not, right?
Mhm.
Who's recently been posting and engaging. There's ways to do that by going to their actual profile and seeing their posts and their activity and their comments. So there's a lot of like indicators that LinkedIn will give you just like naturally built into the platform or using some of their tools. Um, and so what I you know think is like, if you're going after, you know, a referral partner, or if you're recruiting, you know, trying to go after loan officers, you use a tool to kind of like Redder or MMI or Model Match, those guys, Ingenious. You think of a tool like that you can kind of hand in hand
Yeah.
to where you can kind of build your list. All right. So the first thing is know your audience. The second thing is build a list. And then once you find that list, then it's time to find the people that are active and who are on the platform. So once you know who's on the platform, then it's your opportunity to go after and to start a conversation. So like,
Mhm.
let's start a conversation, not pitch them, right?
Right,
Uh,
right.
there's a thing in social selling called, we don't want to pitch slap them, right? Like
Yes.
right off the gate, we're not doing that. We're not trying to do sleazy stuff. We're doing just relational type outreach. And so here's the mindset shift. I have old school loan officers, old school real estate agents, old school, you know, whatever, say to me, Dan, I'm old school. I don't do social media, right? Like I want to go in, I want to shake their hands, I want to like meet them face to face. And that's how you build relationships. And I say, I don't want you to stop that. Like, go do it.
That's right.
Um, absolutely. But like, what the part they're missing is that social media, LinkedIn in particular, is that exact thing just done in a little bit different way.
Mhm.
All right. So think of a networking group that you would go to in person. Think of the things you would do and you wouldn't do. And I make this kind of dramatic analogy quite a bit, but it's like, you don't go in and into this room of 50 or 100, you know, people to network and, you know, stand on a table and yell something about National Hot Dog Day, right? And then turn around and
Right.
leave. You instead, you go in and you have these smaller conversations with people. You make your way around the room. You don't sell them right out the gate. Those people never come back to the networking event, right?
Yeah.
um, and you ask about them and their business, and you're like, how do you make relationships in person? Go take that to LinkedIn. And then when you understand that LinkedIn is the largest networking event on the planet,
Mhm.
that's open 24/7, 365, it's really, and it's free, you know, like, you can get in. That's when things start changing. And
Mhm.
so the way that it works is, once you understand that it's a networking opportunity, you want to build familiarity.
Yeah.
Because when you're familiar, trust comes on the other side of that. So there's a psychological principle called familiarity bias. And that simply means that the more that someone sees you, the more that person trusts you. So our goal should then be to be seen as often as we can so that that trust happens quicker.
Yes.
And we get more of that trust. And so the cool thing about LinkedIn versus in-person networking is now you can build trust at scale.
Yeah.
And so you go in, what does networking look like on LinkedIn? It looks like you liking people's posts, you commenting on people's posts, you sharing or reposting people's posts, you jumping into their DMs and saying, not let's go get coffee, I've never met you, but to say something like, hey, incredible post this morning. Love what you're doing for the industry. Love what you're doing for our community, whatever it is. Thanks for doing what you do. And then just leave and then let the conversation go. If you did that with a very like your ideal customer, you did that with somebody for the course of like 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, didn't ask for a thing. And then you say, hey, would you be up for a Zoom call? I guarantee you they take that call. You've been their supporter. You're now familiar. It's just the way modern networking's done.
That's how it works. Dude.
So,
well, I love that you started with, hey, we're not jumping in there. We're not pitching people. You had me thinking this week, we had Phil Jones was in town. And so I'll put a little plug. If you're struggling with like things to say, he's got exactly what to say. And I will tell you, we've been looking at some of that, magic words and some of the phrases and things that we can incorporate in our language. Because what I realize is, to your point, Dan, it's the same things like you and I having a conversation. I want to do the same thing. If I saw somebody do something great, like they were speaking on a stage, I would want to go tell them afterwards, Dan, you crushed it, man. I love this part about what you shared. This really resonated with me. Same thing's true about your content. And so I share that so people will go, oh, yeah, if I saw Dan speaking, of course, afterwards, I'd want to congratulate him, tell him what an impact he made. Same thing's true. And I love that you said this too, because this has been one for me, reposting other people's content, thoughtful, actual engagement where you leave them some comments, something of, I just call it a value and substance, right? Not like great post. Probably not going to remember that one as much. And so what I'd love for you to expand on, because as you're going through this, I'm thinking to myself, people that have created this list, I created a top 25 when I started this, by the way, like 25 on LinkedIn that I wanted to go deeper with in the mortgage and real estate industry. That was kind of like my targeted avatars, right?
Right.
Man, as I started moving through those, the amount of people that moved to offline conversations, to your point, was significant.
Yeah.
Versus me trying to call them, me trying to text them and get these appointments or go further. What should people be thinking about as they're going through this as far as expectations? I think people come into it and they're like, okay, Dan, like I'm going to go do this.
Yeah.
We'll get in kind of the real world of like, you know, I know what I've experienced, but I'm curious from your vantage point perspective, like what should they expect if they start to send these and they do it this way, conversational, you know, really giving people a compliment? What are the expectations they should have through this process?
Your expectations should be when you start on LinkedIn, if you have not done it before, your expectations should be to be a complete failure and to not get anything in the door. And then you won't be disappointed when you don't get the stuff. All right.
Yes.
So the lesson here that, and this is not some cliche. This is not some, let me just say something that sounds like everybody else. This is the 100% truth about LinkedIn as a platform. It's the truth about building relationships with anyone. It takes time. We're not trying to do this thing fast. We're trying to build relationships, familiarity, trust, and trust doesn't happen right away. And so you can do these things, but they're not going to be as effective day one as they're going to be on day 365. And so that's the first thing for expectations for anyone in sales trying to do social selling. Expect to suck, and don't get discouraged when you do. Everyone, including me, had a day one and we didn't know what we were doing.
Yeah.
You just got to be willing to suck in public, and to not think that people are as concerned with you as we tend to think, right? Um, but here's the thing: I can promise you that. Let me give just a timeline for people, because that's always helpful for me, if I can know that, like, there's a point in time that this can start
Yes.
turning around. And what I've seen, that if there's two different ways. If you do it by yourself and you're just trying to learn and like do it all on your own, um 3 months to 6 months is a sweet spot. I really started seeing. Now for me, it was different. I didn't have a coach. I went in there and just tested everything and tried everything, and like,
Mhm.
I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew that the platform had opportunity. And so I I just learned and learned, and kept doing things wrong, and then made adjustments. And um, so 3 to 6 months is, and really closer to that 3 month if you go in pretty hard. Now, uh, I have, because of the holes and the gaps that I had early on, and I have a LinkedIn cohort that I do now, which is like a group, 1 month group boot camp type thing. Now, I've seen people who've gone to that, who've like hit it hard, like did the work, like said, I'm going to put in the work. And within 30 days, they were booking calls and driving in revenue. And so it's a lot of the same stuff that you teach, and you understand. Um, find the right people that you can learn from, and it will take you down that path drastically faster
Yeah.
than doing it by yourself.
I'm glad you shared that, because you're doing an incredible job. You're filling a gap that exists. You're solving a problem that we all saw that's there. And for some of us, like I'm not stepping into that to go teach that, right? I bring on experts like you, and I'm like, hey, we'll jam with this together. I know what I've done. And what's cool is everything you're sharing, for anybody that's listening, if you go look at, like, I've been on there a while and I've made the mistakes. I can tell you enough to where I don't even remember some of the things I've messed up on. But when someone says them, I go, oh, I did that, and
Mhm.
I'm still learning on the platform. Give yourself some grace. But I also know there's some of you out there, and this isn't everybody, but some of you are like, yeah, that's me. I want to accelerate what I'm doing. I want to get results now. I'm committed. I'm all in. And I've often just found it's a decision. And then you go invest in whatever that is, and you accelerate your time. You figure out if it's worth it. It's up to you. You know what that revenue in the back end, you know what you're willing to commit to. I always say is you're going to get out of it what you put into it. So I'd love to pivot a little bit, because I think we talked about those things. We talked forever about how do you DM, what's the right strategy, what's there. But I'd love your perspective on content creation, because I think a lot of people still get stuck there. And you're talking about social selling and all this. People just get, I find, just frozen, right? Of like, I don't know what to post. And even some of my friends, right? Like some of the people we know, they'll admit to it. I admit to it. We're a little more structured now, so we don't have those moments as much. But I will tell you, man, I still think about it as like, am I posting the right stuff? Like, what's going on? Like, what's the trend? And you're always just trying to catch stuff. What's your take on that, with showing up on the platform and creating this kind of attractive model of what should you be posting? Like, how often? Like, all these things we get the basic questions on.
Yeah, let me give a few tips on this, a few tools, a few insights. One, you are exactly right that this is the toughest part for people to do. People get frozen. It's the perfect way to say it. And so, what I'd like to say is that don't let content be the reason you don't get on LinkedIn. Uh, we just talked about engaging and how powerful that is, and you can make money off of just being a supporter and a connector and all of those things.
Mhm.
Um, but you don't get uh, all of the opportunity that you would um, with content. So you need to do it. You need to be able to create content if you want to like maximize your opportunity. Um, so a couple of things that I've uh, experienced, I've played with, I've seen that works better than others. One thing is just tell stories.
Mhm.
So don't preach to people. A lot of times when we get on social, we say things we would never say in person. Um, we like suddenly, we, if you've not earned the right to be able to speak as an authority on a subject with an audience, if you don't have an audience that's like looking for that knowledge from you, then it's best to just, instead of say you should, you can take that and say, when I first started, it looked like this. And then I made these changes and now it looks like this. People can't argue with your story. And so, and people, and if you think about us as humans, we communicate with stories all the time. That's how we talk in real life.
Yeah.
So bring that to your content. Um, we talked about numbers. Think about some of those big goals you've hit or the
Mhm.
families you've helped with over the years, and bring that into your posts. Think about the things that are happening on a day-to-day basis, the questions that you're getting, the the files that you're in, the problems that are coming in with those deals, how you rescued the deal, how
Yeah.
excited your people were at the closing table. um, all of these things that we are so familiar with, those are all
Mhm.
incredible opportunities to share content. Now,
Yes.
the other piece that you had mentioned a little bit earlier, with Hermosi talking about, um, the opportunity to share people who are happy with the job you've done
Mhm.
is is a huge um I mean, just a huge opportunity that if you're not doing, you're missing.
Sure.
um it lends the credibility, it shows that people want to do business with you. But I think there's some ways to do it and ways not to do it. And so I'm not a fan of automation when it comes to the platform. When it comes to LinkedIn, I'm not a fan of automated um, reviews. So
Mhm.
um, I think they're good. They served a need a while back, but reviews now, if they are put in Canva and designed and look super great, really nice look and feel to them, or if they're automated through some platform, um, people just don't trust them.
Yeah.
Anybody can type into whatever. And so the way that I like to do it, is if you get a text, if you get an email, if you get a DM, if you, whatever it is you get, it doesn't have to be the official Google review or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you get some positive feedback on something that paints you as the hero or your product as like this really valuable thing, whatever situation, you screenshot it, and then you take your little drawing tool and you like scratch out the name, and you
Right.
make that scratch out look ugly. All right. Because then they know it's real. You're scratching out
Yeah.
somebody's real name. They can see it looking. You take all of those instances out that would identify that person, because again, you don't necessarily want to put them out there anyways. But I've had people before who's like, you can keep me in there. That's fine. I'm still
Yeah.
scratch them out because it looks better, right? Like
That's right.
people know that it's real, or tend to know it's real whenever you're able to screenshot things. And so using that, and just putting a story behind that as your image, is really really powerful. So
Mhm.
um a couple of other things that I would say for somebody just trying to get started with content is, video is not as powerful from a consistent, um like views and engagement on
Mhm.
LinkedIn as, you know writing your content with maybe a selfie picture.
Yeah.
um Now that kind of goes in and out. There's like, they're making a big push on video, trying to integrate it into the platform more. But what I've seen, still to this day, is that video posts can go viral, even though LinkedIn's not like a huge fan of virality on these things.
Yeah.
They're still good to get your face and your message out. And so, like, literally, you could take your phone, um, or you could jump on a StreamYard call or a Zoom call with a buddy, maybe like someone in your office. You guys can just schedule 30 minutes for the day, hit record, and ask each other questions,
Mhm.
and just chat about whatever it is that comes up, like you and me are doing right now. And then after it's over, press stop, and then upload the video files, and then have some company or a freelancer splice them up,
That's it.
and send them out, man. And then you can have content right there for 30 minutes once a week. You could have months of content. So there's a number of ways to do it. And really the biggest challenge is the first post and just doing
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. You know, one of my mentors shared with me, and this was like a constant theme as you were just sharing there, Dan, is that he was sharing is document over create.
Yeah.
Document over create. And that has resonated with me as anytime I'm getting stuck. And if you're feeling that and you're listening to this and you're like, okay, okay. And it's like, document what Dan was just share those things that you're doing in the day, the things that are happening in your life that you think are not of interest, problems that you're solving, customer interactions and conversations. I guarantee you it's how the reality shows went viral is we all are just curious. Like, what
Yeah.
conversations are you having? Hey, what are you doing? What's a loan officer doing a day? Like, we think all that stuff is so lame and boring, and yet someone else is like, "Hey, man, I'd actually like to know. I'd like to understand, like, the pre-approval process. Like, what does that all look like?" And instead of you writing it out, you film and you talk a little bit, right? Super simple. And
Yep.
I love what you said there of like simple selfie videos, things that you've learned. And I'm working on my storytelling as well as, things that have happened. And I tell the story because it just allows me, like, the story is the story and people gravitate to it. So I love that you shared that. I know they can get more on the content creation, but I love kind of leaving people wanting more, right? Because I think this is a
Mhm.
journey for all of us. And we've talked about a lot of things. What have I not asked you that you think is relevant right now for people that might be listening? And we've gone through a lot of different pieces of this that if they just took action on this,
Yeah.
you're going to level up in so many ways. You'll be not recognizable in 30 days in your business and on the platform. But what
Yeah.
else should we be talking about, or should I have asked you? People be thinking about.
Yeah. So I do think that there is an opportunity for people to um let's take the mortgage industry, for example.
Sure.
You can identify who your ideal, customer profile, avatar, persona, whatever you want to say. You can identify that group, and you can set up your profile and your content to really speak to them. um but there's this other side of things where, like, a lot of times, because I'm in the mortgage industry, been in the mortgage industry for 14 years now. There is this, like, when you are originating loans, a lot of times you are just focused on your business and getting those files in. And as the industry as a whole is not really something you're concerned about as far as like networking and engaging, right? Um, and so I would recommend, regardless of the industry that you're in, to find the thought leaders and people who have these large audiences who are sharing really valuable industry specific content,
Mhm.
and to start engaging, find time within your whatever the plan that somebody has for engaging, like with their ideal customer. Spend some time also engaging with these thought leaders and help build your brand within the industry. That will then give you more opportunities to be invited to calls like this, to
Mhm.
be able to get opportunity to share someone's audience, to become, be able to share your insights with others in the industry, and to build relationships that could be really, really valuable for you down the road. But what it
Mhm.
also does is any of your potential clients, potential partners, business partners, when they see you engaging with other people, when they see you on podcasts or webinars, when they see you engaging with like people who get a lot of likes and comments and things, that also lends credibility to you. So it kind of kills two birds with one stone in that. But
Yeah.
the relationships that you're able to build within the industry um, are just massive, because there's so many incredible people here. And I think a lot of us, when we're stuck in kind of our own like sales focused mindset, and rightfully so, we got to bring in that business, right?
That's right.
um whenever we like really truly get to experience the industry as a whole and the people in it, the good ones, the really good ones, it's, man, it's so awesome. and you just feel, you don't feel like you're on an island, and you're connected. And so use this platform for all it has to offer, and set yourself up for success in the future, as well as going after and getting those deals now.
Man, this has been a masterclass. We're gonna have to have you back on. We're gonna have to do a part two because there's a lot of questions, and I know, I've looked enough, and we need to keep these condensed. People don't want to listen too long, so we've given you enough, I think, to go back and do some work, right? And I always look. My coach does a great job of this. Is gives you enough to go work on, but then leaves you with enough that you're gonna have questions and follow up that you want to know more. And so, Dan, I'm gonna have to have you back on because there's more we need to jam. I do want to add something that I don't want people to miss is what you were just sharing has been part of my own journey. And I'll just share this story with you is, something about brand equity I did not understand years ago. And I had, fortunately, a good coach that's like, hey, you need to build this brand equity. You need to show up here. Like, you have all these experiences. And he's like, you're most qualified because you've done these things. Like, you've built these teams. You've originated this volume. And I'm like, no, not me. Like, I'm not qualified. And once you move past that into a spot of recognizing your own unique abilities, what God's given you, and the things that you've experienced, your stories will change people's, literally, their trajectory and how they show up. And I'll tell you, my own experience with this was I did an interview with Housing Wire, by the way. We're on there, and I think it was Diego and I. It's supposed to have been over a year ago. I'd been at Revolution like a year at that time, so probably 12 months ago. And I shared on that, and I'm going through my story and why I joined and what I love about this and that. I literally had someone tell me last week, hey, I listened to your podcast. And I'm thinking, okay, yeah, which one, right? And he goes, the Housing Wire one. And I'm going, man, that was like a year ago. They went back and searched things to find out more about us. And they saw it was really a company vision and mission. They wanted to find out if they were lined up with us. Before they would take the meeting, they went and did all this research on me. That allowed us, because I didn't screw it up, fortunately, that allowed us to have a next conversation with someone. And I share that with you. So wherever you are in this, just imagine you would be omnipresent and you have sales stuff out here, over there. You got your LinkedIn jamming, content pumping up. People search Google. You call somebody, and you're like, Dan, I know you. Like, dude, you're doing all this stuff on LinkedIn. And it's like this connection and the speed happens so much faster. And I share that because somebody that I'm still in the game going through this, and what you've shared, I've experienced it. And I need to get better at it. That's the next part that I'm telling myself is, what you've shared has also challenged me of, okay, I'm doing these things. Now I need to do these things. So just take that as your journey. My friend, this has been really cool. And we're going to put some links as soon as this is up. It'll be live. We've got it here. If you're catching the replay, drop some comments in there. We want to make sure this gets shared. Share it with your friends, right? People that you work with. If you're in the mortgage business, you need to be sharing this with your real estate financial planners, your CPAs, everybody you work with. Because imagine you have a team, your referral partners, you guys all come in and you have this type of mindset and approach together. Watch all of your businesses explode to where you have so many warm leads and so much business because you did the things that Dan shared. So any final words or thoughts before we wrap it?
I would say you're going to be scared to do it and to start, but face your fears, because the good stuff is on the other side. Don't let that stop you. In 3 to 6 months, you will absolutely be crushing it if you do some of this stuff and do it consistently. If you have questions, just come find me on LinkedIn, DM me, and I'll point you in the right direction.
Dan, it's been a pleasure. I love these conversations. We're going to have you back on. And guys, if you found value in this, make sure you leave the comments. Make sure you share this with friends. I ask that because a lot of times this doesn't reach the people it should reach. And I see people struggling with these things that we've covered today. And imagine you're the person that was able to help someone because you put the right conversation, the right type of information in front of them. You become the hero. So go do that today and share this away with everybody else. That could be your next post and your content that you share it with somebody. Until the next time, guys, go out there, do something great, and we will talk to you on the next one. See ya.